Good afternoon. Welcome. And we thank you all for coming over here to spend time with us for the next 60 minutes to listen to us on building migration and modernization practice. My name is Rajendran. I assist our partners and customers by investing and offsetting cost of migration and accelerating migration projects. Nick?
Yes, good morning, everybody. And as Raj says, thanks so much for joining us. So, as I said, my name's Nick O'Brien. I manage a team of business development people that we're spread across the world. And our sole job is to support you building your migration practices so you can have profitable businesses that are going good growth. So that's really what we're about. So again, delighted that you're here to spend time with us today. We were thinking, since we've got you here, that before we kick off, we just learn a little bit about you. So just a couple of questions, maybe just a show of hands, just to sort of tell us where you're at. So just initially, how many people is this their first reInvent? Wow. Okay.
Nice.
I was with someone last night. How are we doing with the walking? I don't know if you guys have got smart watches. I saw someone told me yesterday that they'd done 44,000 steps yesterday. So if there's anyone in the room that's beaten 44,000 steps, good on you. So a second question, that's fascinating. Just also want to know a little bit about, in terms of your experience of doing migrations. So, is there anybody there that's just starting out, they haven't done any migrations yet? Just a few. And what about people who've done like a handful, 1 to 5, that sort of number? Okay, quite a large portion.
Yes.
Yeah. And then have we got any ones that have really started ramping up, maybe done like 5 to 20, that sort of volume? Awesome. Thank you.
Fantastic.
Any migration competency partners here in the room? Cool.
Great.
Well, again, look, we know you put a lot of effort into that, so we really appreciate that. It really does help our customers. So thank you for that. Okay, so I'm going to leave you with Raj. Raj's going to take off the first half of the presentation, and I'm going to come back and talk about how we help you build out your practices. So I'll leave you in Raj's hands.
Thank you, Nick. Really appreciate it. Thank you so much again, and then great to see all of you. You're going to be great audience. So building successful migration and modernization practice. Let me start with the agenda, what we are going to cover in the next 60 minutes. I'm going to take the first half, and then Nick O'Brien will join me later on that. First, we are going to look at when we build a migration and modernization projects, when we work with our customer, there are going to be a lot of challenges that we are going to face. So first, we are look at what kind of challenges and how AWS can help our partners and through our partners to our customers to overcome those challenges. Next, we are going to look at this migration and modernization not just as a project, but as a journey. How exactly is that? We are going to cover that. And then later on, very importantly, how AWS can help you, our partners, and our customers together. So that's our agenda today. So let's move on with the first topic, which is the key challenges. When we look at the complexity of a project, especially migration and modernization project, the complexity arises from 3 different areas: the process, people, and technology. We are going to see how exactly we are going to handle those, right? That kind of complexity. When we look at the complexity in a project, in migration and modernization project, the rate of complexity is more than the rate of returns by resolving the complexity is going to be more for our partners and our customers. So the first thing we need to keep in mind with an expectation that that project is going to be complex, and by resolving that complexity, we are going to add value to our customers, and we are going to increase profitability, cost savings for our customers, and et cetera, right? We may be thinking that, okay, complexity is out there. Why should we even talk about that? We all know about that, right? But unless we recognize an issue, that complexity as an issue, we would not be preparing for that. We would not be planning for that. So that's one of the main reasons I want to put complexity out there in our list, right? Migration and modernization project, when they deliver greater cost savings and then increase the efficiency, by looking at all the data we collected, what we found out, there are two factors that is contributing to that, right? And the measurement of this cost savings comes from those two factors. And number one is how much is the rate of modernization that we perform for our customers as part of this project. And also the duration of that modernization that resides in the cloud. By looking at these two factors, you can determine the cost savings for our customers. So by the data we collected, we looked at that. With these two factors, you can exactly see the cost savings increases for our customer as we go through. Then we look at this migration modernization, and we would like to impress upon you that take that as a journey. Look this from the perspective of a journey for the customer. So for our customer, migration and modernization is going to be a business transformation journey. We as partners going to work together with our customer and then make them go through this journey, right? A simple concept to understand that and keep it in mind. But what is more important when we go through this journey is make our customers to understand which point they are starting this journey from. Most of the time, when we talk about the journey, we talk about the end point. What is our goal? Where are we going to reach that, right? But majority of the times, we don't look at the fact that we are not even realizing that we are not measuring or we are not checking where the journey starts from. And that is the point we would like to drive here. So to do that, we have to work with our customer, ask them several questions. What exactly is your business drivers? Why exactly you are doing the migration? What is your end goal? Where do you want to go? What is your current state, right? Once we determine the current state for the customer, then we can design the journey for them, and then we look at the end goal, and at that point, we ask our customer, what is your success criteria, right? AWS, working with the partners, working with the customers, we got several tools for you, which we are going to go through in the slides next, that all these tools will help you to work with your customer to assess their current state, and then to understand their current state, then come up with a plan to move on through the journey to the success criteria. So the next question we need to raise to our customer is, what is your success criteria? Once this migration is completed, what exactly you are expecting to happen? Is that the agility? Is this faster reach to the market? Or is that the cost optimization? What exactly is that? So once you work together with the customer and come up with this success criteria well defined, then we keep that as one team, as AWS partners, customers together as one team. We keep that in front of us, those success criteria, and then we build our project plan to reach those goals, right? Again, AWS helps day-to-day thousands of our customers. We work with our customers and partners on several projects, huge projects, migration modernization project, complex project across the globe. Nick and myself, we work with our partners every day. We have seen a lot of complex projects. By looking over all this data, we would like to provide you some more input on the project criteria and how exactly the milestones will help you to achieve better results in your projects. What do I mean by that? So we looked at this as a journey. We looked at the start point. We looked at the end point, right? Now, when we put together this project planning, we have to come up with the intermediary milestones and keep these milestones well-defined. And these milestones are going to help you to see that whether you are in the right path. When the projects are complex, when the duration is huge, maybe 2 years or 3 years of large projects, there is a very good possibility that the scope of the project is going to change. It's unavoidable. We all know that. Several of you raised your hand that you are working with your customer right now in complex projects, right? So the scope change is inevitable. So if that scope is going to change on the way, which means that's going to deflect our path when we are moving towards our goal, right? That should not happen. Then we will not reach our goal. So what we need to do is, at the beginning of the project, come up with a change control management, work with your customer, and then put that together in your project criteria, project plan, right in the beginning. And define this intermediary milestone, which is going to tell you exactly where you are in your path so that you can adjust your path and then move towards the final goal, right? So we looked at these 4 different things. I'm not saying these are the only complexities or the only roadblocks or only challenges that is going to happen. What we have done so far is by looking at the thousands of projects we work together, looking at the data, we picked a few so that we can talk through that today with you, so to bring you up to speed on that. Now, when we look at the complexity, and then when we put together the last slide and complexity on the top, we also would like to bring you the concept of looking at this complexity of the project in a holistic way. Meaning, AWS and partners, when we work together, sometimes we look at the project, look at the KPIs, all that from our perspective, right? Are we looking at it from the customer perspective? The first question. And as you know that one of the popular leadership principle of AWS is working backwards from the customer onwards, and that is called the customer obsession. And with that in mind, I would like to tell you that look at this in a holistic perspective from the customer and partners together. We look at partners and customer working as one team. So if it is one team, all of that is listed, it is applicable for customers and partners together. For example, for customers, the complexity may be arising from legacy applications when we work on the projects. Then, by looking at the code base of the applications, architecture of the applications, how the data is being integrated across the legacy applications, and then how this data is being analyzed. By looking at all this, you can avoid that complexity. Another point is the skill set. When we look at the skill set, I work closely with AWS training and certification. I developed several enablement programs for our partners and customers. One of them you may know that called Migration Ambassador. It's quite popular. So far, around 12,000 partner individuals got that Migration Ambassador digital badge training. And that training provides the skill set required to understand migration acceleration program and the funding-related activities. Those kind of trainings, thousands of them available for you partners through AWS training and certification. So before you begin a complex migration modernization project, by looking at the current skill set at that point for the partners and the customers, you know that exactly what would be the gap in the skill set. And to fix the gap, AWS T&C, training and certification, can help you to achieve it. We also provide customized training programs so that you can work with our T&C and then choose your training path arranged in such a way that those skill sets can be taken care of. Now, this slide, when I put together, this is an engagement and profitability model slide. And I took an ISV as a sample, but it's applicable to all of you partners, all types of partners. As part of our business, right, sustainability is our topmost criteria. For the sustainability, profitability is the #1 factor we need to look into any of our projects. We are providing value-added services to our customers. By providing the value-added services, we work closely with our customer as a partner, and then the profitability and engagement model, what it shows you that at which point the engagement increases with our customer, and at which point the profitability increases for our partners. So let's go through this slide a little bit deeper. As we told in the previous slides, the complexity of the migration and the migration modernization project grows. As it grows, the value-added participation and the engagement also increases along with that, right? Let's look at the lowest point of the slide, the left lowest point. At that time, let's assume that that particular partner is doing only resell. That means their engagement with the customer and with the project is the lowest. So the profitability is also lowest. As the engagement increases, let's say this partner moves on to provide value-added services in the second block, then they are still in the migration phase. They are not getting into the modernization yet. But at that point, the complexity grows, their skill set increases. They have larger skill set, wider skill set. And at that point, the profitability grows. With our data, what we figured it out is it's going to be approximately 10 to 20%, right, in that area. Then they go to the managed services. At that level, middle of this curve, profitability grow, engagements grow, and their complexity grow. At that time, the duration of the project is also maybe longer. Then they move on to the next levels, and finally, they reach a place where they control the outcome. They determine the outcome for the customers, for that project, and at that point, the engagement level is the highest. And we see that at that point, the skill set that is the partners are going to provide to the customer is also going to be the highest, longest duration of the project. We all know that the people who worked on the modernization project, when it comes at the final point over there, it's not just an one-time deal for the customer, it's going to be cyclical. Meaning the customer is not going to be completing everything at one shot, it's going to be multi-year, they keep coming back to you, to partner, and you become a trusted advisor at that point. They are going to keep coming back to you, and at that time, it is cyclical, right? So we reach the sustained profitability at that point, and that's what we all want. It's not like one-shot project. It's not like just a vendor. I'm just going to sell something to my partners, to my customers, and then done with that. Instead, at that point, you reach the relationship with your customer as a trusted advisor. So what we are trying to impress upon you is, as a partner, you may be wondering, where are you at this particular steps at this point of your maturity model? But what we would like you to see is keep growing and reach that point where you become a trusted advisor and go to the point where it is a sustained profitability for you. Let's move on to the next slide. The operating model building blocks, we are going to show you a few of these building blocks here. And these are all time-tested strategies that AWS has been working on many years, and we are providing to our partners through this. The first one is the business outcome and the value, and that's a foundational block. To get that, and after that, you move on to the people and the process, and then the technology. So by achieving these 4 blocks and integrating these 4 blocks into your planning, into your project, these are the ones that's going to be answering all the complexity, all the issues that we have been showing in the previous slides, right? So envision, align, launch, and scale. And these are all the characteristics of the AWS Cloud Adoption Framework. Then the next one, you can gain insights into the organization's status, where they are in their cloud journey. You can understand their current cloud readiness, the strengths and weaknesses of the organization, and by using the migration readiness assessment. Several of you might have already used it. So MRA is very crucial. When we looked at the journey in the previous slide, we talked about assessing the current position of your customer, all that could be assessed, and you can figure it out by using the MRE. That's the answer to that. Then the next one is CCOE. The CCOE helps to develop an approach for implementing the cloud technology at scale for the organization, right? And also, the CCOE can become the fulcrum for the organization to transform where the technology serves the business. We can build an efficient workstream structure with an architecture consideration, and the well architecture framework is going to help you. And the well architecture framework, WAF, is going to provide you the in-depth analysis and the best practices. So at any point of time in your project when you are going through, you can measure yourself whether you are in the right direction. What are all the pros and cons of the decisions you are making for your customer by looking at these best practices as your reference point, and then keep on measuring and then adjusting the path. Let me stop right here and welcome Nick O'Brien back to the stage, and he will take us through for the rest of our journey. Lovely. Thank you. Very good, Nick.
Thank you, Raj. So when we had our show of hands earlier, I think what I saw was like, a lot of you are in that sort of like early phase where you've done, a handful of projects. And although there were clearly some real experts in the room as well. So what I want to do is sort of like make this very real and talk about the things that we can do that can help you guys. And I just want to step through. So ultimately, just to level set for a moment, like, migrations are so strategically important for us as a business in terms of our growth. They are hugely important for our customers in terms of hitting their objectives, and they're a massive catalyst for services for our partners as well. So, we are all in it, and we all, we've got interest in this working ourselves. And what we've developed is a program. So is everyone familiar? Everyone heard the term MAP, Migration Acceleration Program? A lot of nods ahead. Yep, great. So, we use that as our mechanism to sort of like bundle down, almost like a funnel that we put on our business, and bring everything that we think can be of useful and beneficial to our partners, bring that to you. So now, when we're talking about MAP, like, most of the time, a lot of the attention goes to the finances and how we help commercially with projects. So the thing, particularly for those who are in the room that are in the early phases, there's so much more. And I'm a big evangelist about the other things. I really want to share some of those things, and I hope you'll walk away today thinking, right, I want to use that because that's going to help me advance a lot quicker, and I don't have to develop it myself. So I really want to sort of dwell on those, because I think whilst the finances are super important, and no one's getting away from that, the other things that are really important about building out your practices relates to your engagement with customers. So I just want to sort of like have a nice sort of breadth of the discussion. So the way that we sort of like describe our program is in these six pillars. This is the sort of image that we would take to our customers. Partners are absolutely at the heart of what we do. You bring us incredible breadth and skills, something that our customers simply don't have. You bring opportunity to us, which we are, very grateful for, and you bring that expertise and you bring that trust and those relationships that you bring with us. So, and also a lot of our partners are also customers as well. We have a huge community of ISVs that act as partners in our relationship, and also sort of like customers for consuming services, like on a SaaS platform, for instance. So absolutely essential, and hopefully you've got that through this week from Adam and his keynote about the importance of partners in our organization. So, but that's one aspect. The methodology isn't just a few slides, right? I really would encourage anyone to sort of like delve into that. There are so many assets that we have developed that will help you accelerate your engagement with customers. Again, I'm going to talk about those, but if, for instance, a customer said, I want to run a security workshop, like, we've got a whole content there to help you get up and running. Obviously, you have your own skills, but you can just like lean on us and use some of the assets that we've got. So I'm going to elaborate on that a little bit more as well. Tooling, super important. We've got two choices there. We've got like our ISV partners that bring loads of tooling, which is really useful for certain use cases, and we have platform tooling ourselves. And what I would say, and I'm going to again describe some observations that I've seen, and where it's so important as a partner that you're really conversant on that topic. I will talk about money. definitely. It's an important topic. And, but we've also got, and Raj alluded to that with the Migration Ambassador Foundations. I was amazed how that was taken up this year. We set a goal of like, let's try and get 10,000 people in our partner organizations to take the time to do this test. And like, someone's nodding, it looks like they've done it. You know, we've blown it away. And I cannot believe how engaged you've been in us producing that. So like we are, again, if you've done it, really appreciate that. I think it really helps our traction with account teams when you're speaking in a common way and you're really understanding about, you know, how the program works. If you haven't, I would also advocate it because it is really, really useful. And the other thing as well, I mean, I've been in the company for 5 years now, and I never see any sort of conflict with our ProServe team. So, you know, if you tell me if you've got other experiences, but by and large, I think we coexist really well, and they bring a lot of expertise and some solution assurance sometimes for customers as well. So, you know, we see that as all part of our value prop, and they bring a huge amount of content to us that we then share with partners. I think we're really democratic about that, and hopefully it means that you don't have to go and develop stuff yourself. So that's really what I want to do, is just sort of touch on some of these like major areas where you can get some benefits and we can help you. First one, just to start with tooling. You know, our customers are expecting to have an experience which is data-rich, well-informed, where you're using like, you know, really high-quality tools to instrument, automate, discover services. And we've built out across the platform in all these different scenarios and sort of phases of a program, these different tools. They're available for free, right? So again, customers want to get the best bang for their buck, and they want you to know what's available and also what, you know, how you can use that. And one of the things that I've seen is, and like, you know, it's important in terms of the customer experience, is the way that, you know, no tool does everything, right? So, you know, you have to understand what's in it and also where its limitations are. I've seen an example where we had a customer in France, a waste management firm, and we ran our tool, actually, Migration Evaluator at the time. And one of the things that they were interested in was they were looking at all of their servers, and they were saying, we'd like to see what the software stack looks like. And then we can sort of see all the different applications that we're running on each server, and we can see what operating level they're running at, and we can see if we're in support. We want to see whether we've got license coverage and all these things. So really logical thing for them to want to do, something our tool didn't do. So what we ended up doing was running a second tool, and that is a bad experience for a customer to then repeat an exercise. So again, you know, the ability to differentiate yourselves in the sales cycle and in the early phase of the delivery by being familiar with those nuances are really important, and it does shape how you know, we collectively are perceived. So, you know, I would encourage you to sort of like to do that, and we have like some really skilled people that understand that. They sort of like work out all the functionality, and you can bounce like, you know, sort of approaches off these people, and they can support you in those early phases of the engagement. So that's a little bit about tooling. Just going to move on and talk about the methodology. So, you know, I said right at the outset, there's so much more than just like slideware here. There's some really practical things. So just for instance, many projects are run on an agile structure. Somebody has written out the entire template of every task they could conceivably do in each of these phases, and you can just export that, import it into Jira, for instance, and then you can just start customizing it. So again, you can save a lot of time and sort of like look at it almost like a checklist of what's available. So these practical things that we've developed to ideally help you accelerate in those phases of the project and sort of have something to compare with exist. And we also like create lots of templates. And sometimes that can be a bit overwhelming as well, so we have to make sure that we sort of like explain what the purpose of each template is. But it sort of sets a bar of what we think is a good experience for a partner. So we would have our template that says, when you're building your case for change in the assess phase, you should be looking at what the cost reductions are. Like that's the number one question we get asked. But it's not the only question we get asked. We also want to know what the benefits from agility will be. So again, we want to sort of like tease that out and encourage you to sort of like open that discussion up with the customer when you're building that business case. Likewise, resilience, super important. And on top of that, productivity. So people expect moving on to the cloud, they'll take a chance to sort of like bring in more sort of like automation into their delivery of IT, and they'll expect to see some freeing of time with their people. So they want to have that understood and explained to them. And one of the most really rising points, which Raj touched on earlier, was about sustainability. So energy costs, environmental impact. We have seen a much greater interest in that more recently, and we've been developing things to help articulate that as well. So again, you can lean on us, use these templates, and then like improve the quality of the conversation you're having with customers. So again, we just want to make it practical, and like, you know, we can develop this stuff and then like make that available for you, and then you can sort of like engage those in your customer conversations. And of course, it's no plain sailing. You know, you can't just put this together and then a customer's going to be convinced straight away. They will have their concerns. So they may have concerns about security, as I mentioned earlier, or how we're going to operate in the cloud once we're running in that environment, or compliance issues. And again, we see that regularly, right? So, you know, what we want to do is give you various different techniques that you can use to overcome that. So again, you may have some thoughts there, and then we can complement that with some of the experiences that we've got as well. So like I say, this is all available for you, and that's why I'm so enthusiastic to share that, because it's so much more than just the money conversation, which, as I said, I will get to. Mobilization, again, you know, it's important. What we find our best relationships with customers is when there's a consistency about how our partner's talking about a project and how our account teams are talking to the same customer. So, you know, we like to sort of like be really clear about what we anticipate you'll be doing inside a mobilize phase. So we sort of like articulate that in these 8 different work streams. I won't go through every single one, but what I will say is culturally, I think we've got a really good connection with our partner community, because we like to get stuff done, right? We're not just writing, you know, plans or just putting it together spreadsheets. You know, we are building stuff. And I think that's one thing that we really share with our partners, is that affinity to be practical, hands-on, doing stuff. So we do that with trial migrations as well. So people are actually sort of like starting to exercise the muscle of how they're going to do the migration, or indeed modernization. And that really paves the way for our final phase. And again, you know, we've got tools in this area around to support on migrations. We've got ways in which we can help customers understand how they're going to operate, how they can do financial management of their costs once they move into the cloud, or indeed they can start thinking of the more ambitious side of things around how they're going to modernize as well. And again, we've got assets there available for you to use to help provoke and sort of like strengthen those conversations with customers. So it is absolutely packed. There's this one area that I see called, and even maybe some of the like really experienced partners in the room, I don't see many people using it. It's called prescriptive guidance. We've built a database, I don't know, thousands of journeys, like a workload, maybe Oracle Exadata onto our platform, and all the different options they could have in terms of how they could migrate that. And, you know, we write it in a consistent way. There's like images there which explain the architectural diagram. There's like, you know, steps that you'd go through logically. And if you're preparing an RFP, you know, you don't have to go and sort of design all that and then write that up and spend a lot of time responding. You can just cut and paste, you know, put your own spin on it, but you can just use that as a sort of a building block in your responses. And, you know, we'd love you to use that, so you're not saving your time on, like, you know, expensive pre-sales. You can actually, like, you know, get your presentations out or proposals out quickly. So again, really, in my mind, it's like underused assets that we've got that are all available to you. So that's the migration journey. Just going to move on to the next topic, the money topic. So the way that we've thought about this is on a few different levels. So first of all, we have MAP, and we also introduced in April something called MAP Lite. Is everyone familiar with that? Okay, so not many hands going up, so a few. In an earnest attempt to sort of help lots of different customers with lots of different use cases, we developed lots of different programs. And so we would have one for VMware, and then the Microsoft team would have one for Microsoft workloads, and SAP team developed some stuff as well. So like I say, it was all very well intentioned, but it just created a lot of sprawl. And they all had their unique set of rules of what needed to be provided. And we really don't want our partners wasting time learning about our programs. There's no degree in it. It's a lot of time and an effort on your side. So we consolidated that. I think there's about 14 programs, which we consolidated into one, and we called it MAP Lite. And the thing that we wanted to do was make sure it had like a consistency with our big mothership program, MAP. And what that has is money available in different phases, as we've talked about with the methodology. And what we've been really deliberate about is that we want to use the assess phase as a way in which we can help you build that bridgehead into a customer's organization. And for some of the smaller partners where you haven't got huge capital and you've got really skilled people that you want to put to work on services work, we wanted to pay for that ourselves. So that was what the first approach was, like, no commitment from the customer. We will finance that first engagement. You will use some really good tools. You'll blow them away with your brilliant people and really high quality outputs, and it will act as an accelerator to move customers through into the next phase. So we've introduced that. We introduced it for the big projects, and we sort of like brought it down as well. That was the MAP Lite, and obviously share a lot more details about that with you as well. But that was our mindset there, which is, and lots of partners really like that, because it means they can go into a meeting, they can put a call to action in front of a customer, and they can say, do you want to do this? And what I love is when I see it working really fast. And I saw one example which was just superb, where a partner was having a cold call with a customer, first meeting, in COVID, I think this was. And I think they were sort of speaking on the Wednesday, Tuesday or Wednesday. They got their assess request into us. We approved that, and they had their people on the ground on the Monday. So it's like talking on the Tuesday, action on the Monday. And they ran for 4 weeks. And I know many of you here will have large development delivery teams. You have to keep those people on site, because everyone starts getting nervous about they're going to get pulled off onto another project, or you can't just leave them unbilled for a while. So when I then saw that they'd fixed up the next phase whilst in the assess itself, and they went seamlessly from one from the other, it was like, brilliant. That is the customer experience that we want, right? And that is our job, is to help you to be able to sort of like work with us, get those approvals, and then you can sort of like move really quick. And in that instance, I think there was like 4 data centers. They closed them inside about 4 months. It was like a sensational project in terms of its speed. So, and I think it was it was a case study, and it was like a really nice example of us working in tandem well. So that's mainly about assess. Mobilize, we kind of mental model shifts a little bit here, which we've sort of like kick-started the assess, and we're looking for some sort of skin in the game from the customer. We want them to invest with us and be jointly committed to the sort of like the next wave of the project. And it covers all those topics that we were talking about earlier. And we want to see some outcomes. We want to see some stuff on the platform. We think they want to see that on the platform, so they're getting some early success, and they're starting to train their teams about how to work together, how the testing team kicks in, how the ops team kick in, how all the sort of like the sign-off pieces work. So, we're really keen to have that working. And then migrate and modernize. With MAP, sometimes we're in danger of trying to create so much flexibility and options, it can become a little bit overwhelming. But our mindset is that we should make a percentage of the run rate available in that phase as well. And I think we're, in 2023, with the sort of cooler economic climate, where customers are going to have difficulty raising cash to pay external suppliers, we might see that they'd rather us pay that money in migrate and modernize, not as credits, but actually pay for the services to offset those costs. So we've got a model which makes both available, and we definitely encourage that. We're not saying, well, credits are cheaper for us, so we'd rather use credit. No, we use what's best for the customer, what works. So, and we put that judgment in your hands, and to have those conversations about what is most suitable for the customers. But we're all about trying to reduce the bubble costs. So a customer, inside the constraints of a year and their P&L, they can think, I can make a change, and it won't be an inordinate cost in year one, right? So we're going to try and almost eliminate that cost completely. That's our mindset. So that's the commercials. Hope that was of use. I'm going to move on to talk about something which we've also seen, which is hopefully reassuring for you, which is customers have absolute liberty to just go and do things on their own. They don't need to use our programs, don't need to use our partners. They can simply just start a project on their own. What we do, though, is that we run, and have done for many years now, a benchmarking survey. And what we do is, when we're trying to work out what money our customers save, we don't just do it hypothetically with some spreadsheets. We go and ask them, and we say, you've been on the platform for 18 months, how much did you save? So, when we're talking about this from like empirical data we've collected over years, and we've got direct feedback from them. So this data that you're seeing here effectively talks to that approach that we've got. And what we see is that when they use the MAP program with all of that structure that I was referring to, we get better outcomes. And when I talked about those things around those 5 points, so sustainability is a bit too new, so it's not made it onto the slide, but the other 4 are there. And that's what we see. We see like the cost benefits are better, because if they're using a partner and they're using some of our funding and they're using your skills, they're moving faster and they're able to achieve savings quicker. When they're looking at the productivity and we're using some of the building blocks that Raj was talking about earlier, like the well-architected framework, we're actually sort of like challenging whether we're using the right levels of automation and how we can sort of like take cost and resource effort out of the process as well. So again, we see much higher productivity. Likewise, when people are transitioning into like more complex agile delivery, that needs some leadership and some support, and that's what our partners bring to our customers. So again, we see much, much better returns in that situation there. And resilience, the final one on the slide, you can see them all there. That's also improved when we take a more programmatic approach. So we're thrilled with the impact when customers do it on their own, but when they do it with the program and they do it with yourselves, it really does drive strong results. So really, really pleased about that. I'm just going to sort of close out, to sort of share some feedback. Now, I've spent like 2 days here in Vegas, and I could have put these comments from the last couple of days because I've met with quite a lot of partners, and what we'd be delighted with is if that you would talk, and this would be the sorts of points you'd be making about your businesses if you embed MAP. Some of our partners, like the first one, All Cloud, love this. 90% conversion rate with customers. So, we know that you can choose to go in different directions in terms of what propositions you take to market. And what you've got to do is you've got to have faith that they convert, right? You can't just stall or customers are uncertain. So, when I see high conversion rates, I feel like, great, our relationship is strong because it's paying off for them. And when they're able to talk about the savings that they're generating for customers, we know customers are reaping the benefits there. So, in these instances, they're talking about like either $500,000 to $1 million of savings. I mean, that's fantastic for a customer, and it really strengthens the relationship with the partner. Second quote, because it's not all about the biggest deals, and that's what we did when we introduced MAP Lite, is that we wanted to consolidate that, and I was pleased that, Slalom picked up on that and sort of said, you simplify that process, it makes it easier for me to sort of spread it throughout my organization, get new people who understand it, and also get it, better embedded across the team. So we're pleased that was being recognized. And I'd love it if you all in the room were saying, we got 280% year-on-year growth by using MAP. And I say this honestly, as genuine as I can. I've had that maybe 6 times in the last 2 days. People said, you are helping us drive our business. And it is like the most rewarding thing to hear. So, we want to just spread that for you guys as well and sort of like really capitalize on what our program can do and how it can help you grow your businesses as well. And we know there are other clouds available, right? So, when we get feedback that says yours is the best cloud funding program bar none, that is lovely to hear. We are not complacent, and we know there is always work to do. But our commitment to you is we want to stay the best. We want you to feel that you're putting your relationship with us, you're investing your time and energy with us, and actually what it's doing is that, you've got the best proposition that you could take to a customer. So that's super important for us. So, and your feedback on these topics is really important as well. So that's me. I think I'm closing out. I'm going to pass back to Raj. He's going to give us some next steps.
Thank you, Nick. Appreciate it. Okay. Thank you so much, team. So we are at the final slide. We would like you to take some action. The next steps. Nick and we are going to be here for the next 15, 20 minutes. So if you have any questions, you are welcome to come over, talk to us, ask us questions. We are here to help you out on that. So the next steps, please, once you go back, look it up at the AWS Migration Acceleration Program. These slides would be given to you. You can download them later. Click on the link, go there, or search for it. You can go to AWS sites. If you're a partner, you have access to APN Central. Please go there. I myself published several articles, several assets for you The entire MAP program guidelines are there in the APN Center. You can search for it, download that guide that explains to you all the steps that is required to become part of that program and to use the funding and other benefits from us. Then also you can build your migration modernization projects and the practice. You work with our PDMs and PSMs, drive new opportunities. Thank you so much for joining, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Well done.